Guru Nation, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share. Headed to the site today. Shout out Yuma Clinical Trials. Look, I'm going to start with the beginning. Robert Goldman, myself, and Chris Sauber. We've always had our DSCs CRO, which was an arm of doing investigator-initiated trials, pilot studies, just very low budget, like almost free, if anything at cost. We really did it to help a few investigators get their trials off the ground. There was some important work with immunotherapy, which we're still using for our CRA Academy internship. And then there's other stuff for that small CRO we have in the pipeline. Again, another pilot study. We're not doing that necessarily to make money or to even make like a real impact in the industry other than helping our students get internship experience. So go check out the CRAacademy.com, the CRCacademy.com. But I got a special announcement today, and it's going to come with this, followed by this opinion I have. NextGenTrials.com. Next, N-E-X, Gen, G-E-N, trials.com. Link in the show notes. It's our new CRO, and it's not even a CRO. I don't even like calling it a CRO. It's a service provider for sponsors, because I think the CROs, their days are numbered. I don't think they're going out of business. If you look at the smart ones, the market leader in this space, IQVIA, what have they been doing this last 5 years? Technology. They're building things for sites. They are acquiring sites. They are still utilizing their core competency of monitoring and full service CRO work, but they're layering it on top of the new fundamental, which is sites and site-centric technology. And you can extrapolate a step further, which is a lot harder. No one's been able to do this. Patient-centric technology. This is exactly what we're trying to do as well. And the smart CROs are going to pivot, and the dumb ones are going to keep forcing a square peg into a round hole until the market tells them otherwise. So we thought we wanted to be the change we see in the world, but so if you're a small sponsor and you want help with a service provider formerly known as a CRO, nextgentrials.com. But let's look in the last 5 years of what actually happened. So even before that, we go 10 years. Risk-based monitoring. I remember doing videos 2015. I remember the date because Donald Trump in 2016 became president. Darshan and I did a video right around, when was it? End of 2015, when it was, to me and to many others, it was becoming probable that he would win. And so I remember Darshan and I did a video. You can go find it on the YouTube channel. What happens to risk-based monitoring if Donald Trump wins? And it was kind of clickbaity, but in that 45-minute podcast, we get into risk-based monitoring and the technology, the very early stages of this technology. Like the tech initially for risk-based monitoring was CRO analytics. All the analytics they had, they had EDC partnerships where they would get the data and they would be able to see trends and they would be able to spot fraud really quickly. There was another portal Robert Goldman knows like the back of his hand. Clue Points, I think it's called, where it would show you like trends and which sites are trending up, which sites are trending down on a particular study as far as like their real life risk profile. And then they would adjust the monitoring plan accordingly, because prior to that point, everything was 100% source data review or source data verification. And today there's a hybrid. You won't really, we take it for granted now, a decade later, but risk-based monitoring is ingrained into every study. Even if they're doing 100% source data review, source data verification, there's still elements of risk-based monitoring that are being utilized, that are being deployed, from things like recruitment, screen fill rates. I mean, anything you can think of, how quickly you enter data, how quickly you respond to a query, anything you can think of is being tracked. Analytics for everything. If you guys, most of our industry is familiar with LinkedIn. Have you ever gone on LinkedIn and look at your analytics page? Like, just look at how many times you appeared in people's feeds and all this other stuff. Think of that, those key performance indicators that the CROs and sponsors are interested in for sites on a given study. So that was risk-based monitoring. Today, that is ubiquitous. There's even layers, like they layer AI now on top of that stuff. And we're actually we have some strategic partnerships with some vendors that will provide these things to our sponsors at affordable prices, because we understand we're not going to be working with like the Eli Lillys of the world. We're going to be working with sponsors you never heard of initially. But the CROs have been investing in this stuff. They're not stupid. They don't have their head in the sand. And IQVIA has really been exemplary. And if I were to own one stock of a CRO, it would be IQVIA. I don't own it. I used to own it in the past, but I don't think I ever held it that long. But IQVIA would be the one I would be comfortable with, because they seem to understand that, yes, they used to be called a CRO. They're still called a CRO because we don't have another term for it. And service provider, formerly known as CRO, just doesn't sound good to a publicly traded company that has investors to appease with their current core competencies. But they seem to get it. If you look at all the stuff they've been doing lately, beyond the risk-based monitoring stuff, they were one of the first ones to do it. And if they don't develop it in-house, they acquire. I remember they acquired drugdev.org from Melissa Easy. What was that about? That was about feasibilities and site database. They were early. I think this was 2012, 2013, 2014, around that time. IQVIA was one of the first ones. They acquired a patient database. I think it was where patients would voluntarily go in and log their pharmacy prescriptions to see if there are any safety things happening. Like, just patient. They're on the patient-centric stuff too. There's a reason why they are the market leader. If you look at what they've done the last 3 years, all right, they've been buying up sites. They bought up at least one site network that I know of. I think it was like $300 million. Why are they buying sites? Because the future of what we used to call CROs, I think, are site networks with CRO capabilities layered on top of it. And if you boil down to what a CRO capability actually is, if you take away all the smoke and mirrors, what is it? It's monitoring, it's making sure they're compliant, making sure the sites are compliant, it's site selection, it's having some influence over the sites, which none of them had prior to them fully acquiring site networks. And it remains to be seen if that's even going to be the case. Usually with higher bureaucracy and more management layers, it's tough to achieve the outcomes you were expecting, even if they're your own assets, meaning the sites in this case. That was one of DSCs CRO strengths. Is our only strength really was our influence over sites and just bare bones monitoring. Like, you want just no frills, just get monitoring done, we can do that. Well, now, with all this tech that's become ubiquitous, a site network, and talk to Ray from Creo, and just go to conferences and talk to people off the record. Site networks will be the new CROs. But, okay, and this is a huge but, no pun intended. They will what will their core competency be? Because it's still going to be doing studies, right? It's not going to necessarily be servicing sponsors for studies that they're not doing. There's still a huge gap. I think IQVIA is going to take a lot of this. I think a few of the other CROs that get it are going to adapt. But there's still going to be that long tail of sponsors that need help with this stuff. And that's where NextGen trials come in to play. That's why we created it. Yes, there's a lot more than monitoring that goes into a CRO. I'm learning so much, and I can't wait to start a new podcast series just around the idea of what a company service provider formerly known as a CRO can do and can provide. But it's evolving. And this AI stuff, it's not a gimmick. This is here. This is going to change a lot of things. Not monitoring. I think for monitoring, it's going to be a tool. You always need boots on the ground. We have the technology in place to do every visit remote because half of the sites use eSource and eReg. And we still choose, and by we, the industry, still chooses to do site visits every so often. And by every so often, once every 2 months for the most part. Why? Because sites are still run by human beings, not AIs, and they respond better to in-person requests than email requests where they are bombarded, let alone alerts from random portals. Look at what else IQVIA has done. I just discussed random portals, right? About 12 portals a study, if not more. IQVIA just brought in, I forgot what it's called, but basically a single sign-on for all the portals. So any study IQVIA manages, the sponsor has it required from the vendors to allow IQVIA to allow the sites to have just one password to log into all those 12 portals. So you just have one login now for all your 12 portals, whereas before you had, 12 logins, if not more. But this is a ubiquitous tech, and I saw people on LinkedIn complaining, well, this is just a walled garden for IQVIA. Of course it's a walled garden for IQVIA. But IQVIA's, kudos to them for being the first ones to do this. And they're the ones that can make the most impact on this, but pretty soon everyone else is going to do it. And you're going to have single sign-on, so you're making life easier, a little bit easier for sites. And this is tech that used to be revolutionary becomes ubiquitous. Tech that used to be expensive and hard to implement becomes ubiquitous and cheap. And so what is the actual core competency of a CRO or service providers formerly known as CROs? It's higher level stuff, right? It's not dealing with the mundane anymore. And there still is a lot of that. That's why you need boots on the ground. That's why monitors will never go away. But everything else, its influence over sites, its influence over the actual patient accrual at the studies. Now look at what else has been going on lately. Outsourcing of all the non-essential work, admin work, study startup work, contract and budget work, overseas. Why? Downward pressure on competition. So that means the margins for these CROs are shrinking. So what do you do if you're a smart business when your margins are shrinking? You got to increase revenue somehow. You got to have new verticals. And that is tech. But now that that's going to become ubiquitous fast, it's sites and the site work. So something to think about. We already have the site stuff taken care of with NextGen. We've got the tech vendors. We've got plenty of tech vendors that we can implement and we can utilize on our next trial. We're happy to get in this ball game as well. And I personally am happy to learn the inner workings of a CRO because I have for the last decade, but from a monitoring perspective and a little bit from like a regulatory affairs. But right now, we're going to get heavy in those weeds. We're deep in those weeds. And looking forward to bringing you guys content around that as well. So, like, subscribe, comment, share. Let me know what you think the future of CROs are. Should we even use that term anymore? I think in 5 years it's going to be an outdated term. We're still using it because there's nothing else. But we're referring to NextGen trials as a service provider formerly known as a CRO. Like, subscribe, comment, share, Guru Nation. Talk to you soon. Almost at the site. Bye-bye.